2 years ago, a fully loaded 18-wheeler rolled out of a freight terminal in Dallas, drove 200 miles down Interstate 45, and delivered its cargo to a Houston warehouse on time. No driver, no safety operator, nobody in the cab. That truck wasn't a prototype. It wasn't a test run. It was a paid commercial delivery for a real customer, and the same route has been running every single day since. Right now, while truck drivers are being told their jobs are safe for another decade, Aurora Innovation is moving real freight on American highways with zero humans behind the wheel. Oklahoma's Highway Patrol just finished training troopers on how to handle these trucks during traffic stops. And the legislation that made it all legal? It quietly passed back in 2019, 6 years ago. You weren't told. The trucking media barely covered it. The trade associations stayed silent. That wasn't an accident. That was the plan. The Dallas to Houston corridor is the canary. Aurora launched commercial driverless freight on Interstate 45 in 2024, and the industry barely covered it because their two biggest launch customers were Hirschbach and Werner Enterprises, two massive trucking companies. The same fleets that employ tens of thousands of human drivers right now are the ones paying Aurora to put driverless trucks on the road tomorrow. Think about what that means. The companies you work for didn't fight this. They invested in it. But Texas was just the proof of concept. The real expansion target is Oklahoma. The Oklahoma legislature passed House Bill 1365 back in 2019, which established the legal framework for fully autonomous commercial vehicles on state highways. The bill went almost unreported in trucking publications. Most drivers based out of Oklahoma City and Tulsa had no idea it existed. Now the Oklahoma Highway Patrol's Troop S, which handles size and weight enforcement on commercial vehicles, has been running classroom sessions on autonomous freight. Troopers are being taught how to communicate with a truck that has no human inside, how to pull it over for inspection, how to handle a roadside breakdown, how to respond to a crash. You don't train state troopers to interact with a technology that's 5 years away. You train them when it's 6 months away. Oklahoma officials have stated that fully autonomous commercial vehicles could begin operating on state roads as early as June. Here's the part the trade publications don't want to spell out. Aurora isn't a Silicon Valley outsider trying to break into trucking. Aurora went public on the NASDAQ back in 2021. The company is valued in the billions, and their hardware partners are the same names painted on the side of your truck right now. Peterbilt is an Aurora partner. So is Kenworth. Both are subsidiaries of PACCAR, the trucking giant headquartered in Bellevue, Washington. Volvo Trucks is also developing autonomous platforms with Aurora's technology. The same companies that sold you your last truck are building the truck designed to replace you. The investors are even more telling. The biggest names in freight, logistics, and venture capital have been pouring billions into autonomous trucking for the last 5 years. FedEx ran early pilots. Uber Freight had a stake. Volvo's autonomous division has been quietly testing on European motorways for years. Daimler, the parent company of Freightliner, has its own autonomous division running in parallel. This was never a question of if. It was a question of which company would clear the regulatory hurdles first. Aurora cleared them. Texas approved them. Oklahoma is next. After that, the dominoes are Arizona, New Mexico, and Tennessee, all of which have already passed favorable autonomous vehicle legislation. The states that hold out won't stop the transition. They'll just get cut out of the freight network. For years, the talking points stayed the same. Autonomous trucks would only handle simple long-haul stretches. Human drivers would still be needed for the last mile, for complex deliveries, for backing into tight loading docks. Your job, they said, was safe for at least another 15 or 20 years. That was never true, and the people saying it knew it wasn't true. Long-haul, over-the-road trucking is the most profitable segment in the industry. It's where the vast majority of freight ton miles happen on American interstates. It's the highest-paying driver work, and it's also the simplest segment to automate because it's hours of straight-line highway driving between two endpoints with predictable conditions. The complex stuff human drivers handle, the city navigation, the tight loading docks, the snow-covered mountain passes in Wyoming, the unmarked dirt roads to rural job sites, those are the hardest problems for autonomous systems to solve. They might take another decade or two to crack. So which segment do you think gets automated first? Not the hard stuff. The easy, profitable, predictable stuff. The exact segment that employs the most drivers and pays the best wages. The industry knew this from the beginning. They told you the opposite anyway. And here's the detail that gives the whole game away. Truckers have been asking online for years, why do these driverless trucks still have sleeper berths if there's no driver? The answer is brutal once you understand it. The entire sleeper area on Aurora's trucks has been gutted and repurposed. The bunk is gone. The mattress is gone. The refrigerator and microwave that some fleets installed for drivers? Gone. What's inside that compartment now is racks of redundant servers, cooling systems, and processing units. The brain of the truck. The LiDAR processors, the radar arrays, the camera feeds, all the computational hardware that lets the truck see and think. They didn't even keep the option open for a human to ride along. The truck is purpose-built to never need you. The shell looks like a regular Peterbilt because the chassis is, but the inside has been engineered with no provision for a driver ever sitting in it again. That detail tells you more than any press release ever will. Truck drivers aren't the first casualty of this transition. They're just the most visible one. The collapse starts long before the last human driver is replaced. Travel centers go first. Pilot Flying J loves TA. The whole network of truck stops along Interstate 40 and Interstate 10. Their entire business model depends on a human stopping for federally mandated rest breaks. Drivers buy meals at the diner. They fuel up and grab coffee. They get oil changes. They pay for showers, parking, repairs, snacks, energy drinks. That entire economy exists because a person inside a truck has biological needs. Aurora's autonomous trucks don't eat. They don't sleep. They don't need a 30-minute break every 8 hours. They don't shower. They don't buy beef jerky at 3 in the morning. They fuel up at company-controlled depots, and they go. Some travel center operators along the Texas corridor are already discussing charging autonomous trucks higher parking rates as a defensive measure. But that's like a video rental store trying to compete with streaming by raising prices. It doesn't stop the transition. It just makes the truck stop more expendable. Then the diesel mechanics go. Every small town along Interstate 40 has at least one independent repair shop that depends on a steady stream of broken-down trucks. Aurora services its fleet at company-controlled facilities in major metros. The independent shops are being routed around by design. Then the diners, the motels, the rest area economies. Every town that exists on a highway exit because drivers needed somewhere to stop. The waitresses who know the regulars by name. The mom-and-pop motels that rent rooms by the night to drivers waiting out a storm. All of it depends on humans being inside the trucks. And then, eventually, the drivers themselves. Here's the timeline as it actually looks. Oklahoma approves driverless commercial vehicles in June. By the end of next year, the I-45 corridor expands north into Oklahoma and west into New Mexico. By 2028, every major interstate corridor has either driverless lanes or fully approved driverless routes between freight hubs. The American Trucking Association estimates hundreds of thousands of long-haul positions at risk over the next decade. Internal industry projections, the ones that don't get released to the press, run much higher than that. If you're driving long-haul OTR right now, the runway is shorter than anyone in the industry will admit out loud. The work that's still expensive to automate is local delivery, specialized freight, heavy haul, oversized loads, hazmat, and complex regional routes. That's where the next 5 to 10 years of trucking jobs actually live. But the bigger problem isn't the technology. It's the betrayal. The industry knew. The trade associations knew. The state legislatures knew. The truck manufacturers knew. And they let drivers keep buying trucks, taking out loans, signing leases, and training their kids to follow them into the cab. Because telling drivers the truth would have crashed the labor market years before the technology was ready to replace them. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol just held the first training in the country on how to deal with driverless commercial vehicles in the wild. That's not the beginning of this story. That's the middle of it. The beginning was 2019. The end is closer than you think. Subscribe if you want to know what happens next. We're tracking which states approve driverless commercial vehicles next, which routes get automated first, and which trucking jobs are actually going to survive the transition. The next video breaks down the 5 trucking specialties that autonomous freight can't touch, and what it costs to switch into them.